afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here. And we're getting ready to start. And I'm Professor Cilento, and I was delighted to supervise Alicia's project. And I wanted to introduce her to you. Alicia is a digital media major, and she worked in the Office of Marketing and Communication and as a multimedia designer for the last 2.5 years. She also served as a student diplomat, speaking about the digital media major at various college open houses. And on top of this, she's been the co-president of the Messiah Film Society and planned and hosted the Ephemeral Film Festival as part of her digital media senior seminar. This research project called Diversifying IT engages with the topic of gender and ethnic diversity in the IT industry, and contends that increasing gender and ethnic diversity in tech position would benefit the global reach of technology and produce more comprehensive tech solutions. Increasing diversity in IT, however, begins with access to technology, continues with educational opportunities, then continues through the hiring process, and she explores all of this topic. And I have to say that this project is generally interdisciplinary in the best sense of the term, because she has acquired over the years experiences in multimedia communication, but also in graphic design, and she'll show you some of her blog and the visual style. And she's been exposed to computer programming as well, and she blends all of these things together into this multimedia project. Also, there's an interesting biographical experience and biographical drive, because actually her dad worked in technology, was an IT professional, and worked in security. So she learned to appreciate this profession through her family, and then she conceptualized on this very successfully, also bringing into this her experience as a female scholar, the awareness that she works in a privileged environment, having access to technology, but also the difficulty of breaking into the profession as a female student who is about to graduate. I have to say that this project has strong responses, and we had, this is the third time she presents it, and she presented it at the NCUR, which is the National Council for Undergraduate Research in North Carolina, and then she went to another conference called Ray Humanities 2016 at Bryn Mawr College, which is an undergraduate symposium for digital humanities, one of the best in the nation. And she presented this project in different formats every time. So, in doing these presentations around the country, she has been in touch with many people and kept exploring topics of diversity. And you'll see some of these. The project also includes some video interviews. So thanks, Alicia, and we look forward to hearing this from you.
Thank you all for being here. I know that there are 3 presentations today in a very short time span, so I appreciate that you are here. And if you do have to leave in about 10 minutes, I understand, but you'll miss the end. So grab some food on the way out, it's okay. You can come talk to me later. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to Dr. Cilento for supporting me and advising me throughout this project. It's been very challenging at times to really figure out what I was doing, but it was really helpful to have someone there to hash out ideas with me. And then to all of my peers and faculty who have also conversed with me about my project, I really appreciated your input. So thank you so much. And to John Wheat, who is here today, thank you for talking with me about your experiences. We'll get to that a little later. So just to start off, with this project, I'm a very practical person. So when I decided to do a senior thesis project, very academic research, oh man, what does that even look like? I wanted it to be something that people could actually benefit from in some way. Not that other research you can't, because you definitely can. It does a lot of great things. But that was one of the driving forces for my project. How can this be applicable in the real world? And so considering my father's background in IT and my own work in digital media, which is built on the foundation of technology, I really felt like this was an important topic to look into, the industry that I'm sort of trying to get into. And then also just the ideas of who gets to work in these fields, and why is it necessarily not the people with the skills or those who want those skills? What is going on that is preventing women and people from minority ethnic backgrounds from getting jobs in this industry? So just as we start, I'm not very good at using Twitter, but I'm trying. So I'd really like to get this hashtag going, hashtag #DiverseIT. If you could join me in that, that'd be really fun. And then the website that I have used as the platform for my project, I'll show you briefly. But just to think more about how IT really affects the things that we do, how many of you use iPhones? Almost all of you, great, okay. So you've sort of seen this trend over the past few years where the iPhone keeps getting bigger. The phablet trend is occurring. Well, recently, iPhone came out with iPhone SE. Has anyone seen it, heard it, used it? Okay, well it's smaller. It's the first iPhone that is actually smaller than all of the rest in the new model. And so there's been kind of ideas as to why maybe that is. Apple didn't really say why they had made it smaller. They were just like, a lot of people want the older version size. But one of the things that I would contend is that perhaps it's because there's a lot of outcry from women and from people of smaller stature that have smaller hands that can't use the giant phones. So that sort of voice that wasn't necessarily perhaps in the design part of it, like the women who are saying later, I can't use this iPhone, it's too big. Where were their voices in the design process when the phones were being implemented? Like, what caused the phablet trend to kick off, whereas those who needed a smaller phone didn't have that voice? So just think about that as we move forward. Because as we're talking about what IT is, it really has infiltrated everything that we do. There's cloud computing. If you use Snapchat, Google Drive, really anything academic related, you're probably accessing a database that is not on your local computer. And so cloud computing is super important, especially for businesses as they manage their funds and connect globally. And then social networking, something that we do all the time, especially in this day and age, and I know that a lot of students strive to have this social networking skills going out into the job field. We're using information technology to do these things. So yeah, computers and phones, those are the devices that you might most connect with information technology. But then also, when you think about all these things and how they've infiltrated our personal lives and our businesses, even our governments are founded. Like, my dad works in security, and for a while he had to decide, does he want to work for the government and maintaining the network security of our government, or working more on the commercial side? And that was something he had to contend with. But the point is, the IT is there, and we need it, so it's a very important part of our lives. And going back to the phone, the user experience that we all, when we interact with devices, we have to think about that on the design side, the development side. You have to think about who your audience is, who you're selling the product to. So, alrighty, so basically, coming into the tech industry here, I just want to show you this graphic. I actually have the actual thing, so we'll get there. No, come on. It's really fascinating to me the way that people use visuals to communicate about or to kind of analyze and assess all of the different data that has been produced recently. So in the past couple of years, tech companies have begun to release their diversity demographics, so to speak, sharing the numbers of who works for them. And so this graphic shows overall the employees for several of the different companies: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, different companies, Amazon, Apple, Dell. And you can see right off the bat that the females, not super well represented, about 30%, and that white individuals are around 60 to anywhere from 50 to 65% of the employees who are working in these tech fields. And so just looking at this current situation, like, I can even click, I think there's a way, yeah. So you can kind of restack it and see the video, for example, employs the most Asian workers, while Amazon is actually doing the best so far in the year 2015 at employing Black individuals, but those are still super small numbers compared to the overall whole. And so this just initial look at what's going on is very interesting to me. And so as I went to consider all of these things, I wanted to see exactly why this was and how maybe it could be changed or why it should be changed. So there's also another graphic that I want to point you to first that shows a couple different companies, and it breaks down what kind of position it is, because I think that's also really important. Because as you look, you'll see if I hit women for Dell in their professional, I mean, it's about a third of the employees in the professional setting are women, but in their technical positions, it's only 501. And I think I ran a statistic, but I can't remember what it is now, but it's pretty small. It kind of looks like maybe about 15%. Whereas in administrative tasks, it's about 55%. So there's a big difference there as to why are the women not getting into these technical positions, even at these technical companies. And let's see, come back here. Yes, no, maybe. And so one of the other things that I looked at is I looked at Google's diversity itself, because Google is one of the first businesses that released its numbers in 2014. And so as you can see, it was about, and these are the technical positions specifically, the 80% male, well, 82, and then 82% women, and then 59% white, and then the different breakdowns for other ethnicities that are prominent in our US population, but clearly not as represented here. And so then what I did is I actually went back and I looked, and 2 years later, I think this is actually from now, but 2 years before, it was like 17% and 83. So there is incremental change happening, and that is really good. But my project wants to see how can we get there faster maybe, or also why it's important. So one of the things that I did in my research is I tried to review as much scholarship as I could on the idea of diversity, specifically related to the workplace, and how diversity, identity diversity, when you look a different way, you come from a different cultural background, the way that that plays into the way that you think and how you problem solve. And so IT, which is a very problem-solving based field, we're always developing things to solve a problem, that is really benefits from a diversity of thought. And so that's sort of my driving force here as to why companies should become more diverse, because they can actually improve their problem-solving teams. People can reach solutions faster and better by incorporating more diversity. And this quote from Deloitte University Press, one of their insights into this diversity of thought, just thought it was really poignant. That it goes beyond the affirmation of equality, and it puts the focus on realizing the full potential of people, and then in turn the organization. And so that's something that I think all companies should strive to do. But yeah, so recognizing the full potential of people. Now, something that I've just started to look into a little bit more now, towards the end of my project, is then once you start hiring a more diverse workforce, what sort of problems arise, and one that I'm seeing is the management policies are going to change. And so that's something that I have not had time to conduct a ton of research on, but I did find one specific author, Michelle Mubarak, and she wrote a whole book, and she's actually released a couple of different editions of it called Managing Diversity. And it's not specific to technology, it kind of thinks of the industry as a whole, but it speaks to how management practices are going to have to change. Especially because right now, if you go back and look at these graphics, a lot of the managerial positions are held by the majority. And so we have to take into consideration what that looks like. So, okay, so then now that we've figured out, okay, there's a problem and it's important to change it, how do we change it? So I looked and I actually found that there's a lot of different organizations right now that are working towards change. And looking at this whole problem of diversity in tech actually starts from the ground level. It starts with access. And so people who have access to technology, but then also educational opportunities, these are the people who eventually go on to get the jobs, or at least be part of the hiring process and possibly get the jobs. So one of the biggest organizations that is working towards increasing educational opportunities is Code.org. And they not only offer training for teachers, so that teachers can then go into the public schools and equip students, but they also they have the Hour of Code. It's supported through Amazon's web platform, which is important because businesses should be supporting this kind of change if they're trying to end up with a more diverse workforce. But the Hour of Code, it's introductory level programming courses that are only an hour long, and they're all online. So you do need access to the internet. They do have resources that are available if you don't have access to the internet, but somebody has to go on the internet first and download them. So somebody has to have access to the internet, but at least it's making a step in the right direction offering this, especially because at most public libraries you can access the internet, and a student would be able to do that here. But yeah, so they have these basic introductory level courses. It's like a crash course in programming, and they're really fun. Like there's one that's like Star Wars themed or like Frozen themed for targeting our generation. And then also their whole mission is focusing on the underrepresented minorities who don't necessarily have access. They maybe can't get into a school that already offers computer science as a class. And so that's really important. One thing that I just recently found out is that Microsoft, this is actually a year ago, so I'm just slow to the game, Microsoft, they were really pushing in support of a House bill that would require computer science education, and it was going throughout a couple different states, and they were focusing mainly on Washington State, trying to get that approved so that public schools would have to offer computer science education to students. And that's something that I think is really influenced, like that sort of legislation is probably coming out of these sorts of organizations that are speaking out and calling for change here. On the flip side of the educational opportunities, once you have the skills, you've learned the things, and you're trying to get a job, there is actually a lot of hiring bias, and they're finding this out in most industries. There's what's called implicit bias, where a hiring manager and interviewer, they simply have preconceived notions that they don't even know about and can't necessarily control for unless they're aware of them, that play into who they will decide as the prime candidate for a job position. So when you're going into an interview, if you don't look a certain way or talk a certain way, or maybe, I don't know, just something along those lines, they might already just count you as different and not necessarily the best person for the job. And so there's a couple different tools that are starting to crop up to counteract this. One is Unitive.works. It's a hiring app, and the goal is that because it's all through an app, there's no face-to-face interaction, there's no phone interview, so it streamlines the process. It has a bunch of different ways that you can kind of narrow what you're looking for in the job position, so the hiring business can make it really explicit who they're looking for and what kind of skills. And then because it's an app platform, a lot of different people will have access to it. And they're promoting that this can make it easier and quicker, it'll shorten interview times, to find the right person with the right skills, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, etc. So that's just one. There's another one called Gap Jumpers that's advertising itself as the blind audition tool, kind of like The Voice, but for hiring. So it's implementing a similar strategy to try and take away the visual and audible kind of aspects of interviewing. And as you can see, the founder of Unitive, she had witnessed how lack of diversity stunted innovation and effectiveness at organizations big and small, and that's what led her to create this app. And so, as you can see, people are starting to realize that this is an issue and working towards it. And so, you can just look at my references for a bit, but I have more. My goal then was to take all of what I found and actually put it online, IT, online, see the connection, so that people can actually go onto a website and see everything that I have put together, and hopefully benefit from it. And here, I'll make this bigger so you don't see my dashboard, because that's awkward. Okay. So I also had to contemplate, okay, most research projects you write a traditional paper and you submit it and then they keep it in the library for years after I'm gone. But I decided to do a blog instead because I felt like that was a better way to reach my target audience. And while people haven't necessarily been commenting on my blog, they have been viewing it because I can tell, I have stats. So I know you're looking, you should just say something. Anyway, But yeah, so just today, because you know, college students down to the wire, I posted this one last blog post, or most recent, about this whole how can we diversify IT. And but as you can see, I have a couple different other ones trying to incorporate, you know, these things, why it's important, who and what actually needs diversity, so the companies, the businesses, the education systems. And through this, my goal is that people who are interested in making changes in this effort can see all of my things in like a holistic approach, comprehensive look. So I do have all of my sources, everything that I have grappled with, compiled onto this bibliography page so that others can go follow the links, read the articles, because a lot of them are different blog posts, things published in online journals, different online resources like code.org, for example. And I want that to be something that is accessible. So, yeah, and then, okay, there is one more part. I can't forget this. So, one of the things that I also wanted to do with this project is actually talk to real people who work in IT, because just listening to me talk about diversity isn't really giving you the whole sense of different perspectives, the whole diversity of thought that I'm going for if it's just me. So I reached out locally to start, and I reached out to John Wheat and Kathy Purcell, two local professionals in tech, to see sort of what their experiences were. And while I did record these interviews and I have the footage, I have not had the chance to upload the videos yet. So bear with me, but I have the highlights for you. So one thing that I think is really interesting here is the sense that John Wheat really conveyed to me how women are perceived in the IT industry right now. He said that there aren't that many females that do a lot of IT-related work, and those that are kind of pigeonholed into the salesy front-end sort of jobs. And kind of going back to that graphic, you see the administrative positions having a lot of women, but is that necessarily what they were applying for when they got into the company, or what they sort of like, or their dream was? And so, yeah, because they do have a lot to offer. And Kathy Purcell also, she provided a different perspective on the gender topic, looking at how there is some truth to the idea that women and men perform differently in a professional setting, but that can be really important, and it's good to try and utilize both facets of that to bring them together and unify them in the work that you do. And so I think that that's also plays into that idea for the future research of how management needs to take these things into consideration when you have a heterogeneous group. And then the last thing that John said that I really liked was even language barriers shouldn't matter if you have the skills. So I was really hoping to interview one of my dad's coworkers, who's an immigrant from India, to hear about his experiences working in IT, but I haven't been able to do that. So as of right now, my project is a little lacking in the voice of the ethnically diverse professional, but I'm hoping that it can perhaps grow in the future. It is online until December because I purchased the domain for a whole year. So, yeah. But yeah, so it's definitely something that I've been sharing it on Facebook, this blog, trying to garner some different feedback from others. So if you have anyone that you know would like to would either interview with me or discuss these things with me, I would be happy to do that and continue this. I recently did hear from Lynn Taylor in ITS on campus, and she actually is doing something with Girls Who Code. So I'm going to pull that up because I didn't do that yet. Girls Who Code is another one of those organizations focused on the education, specifically for girls, that I have am referencing in my project. And one of the things that they do is they have a summer program, but they also have clubs. And this is a way that girls can find educational opportunities in computer science for free. It's all for free because it's a nonprofit organization. They work really hard to provide these opportunities for free. But these clubs are available across the nation. It says they're nationally in over 25 states currently, and So not only do they offer the education, but they also try and connect these girls with other women who are already in the industry to serve as mentors to them. And Lynn Taylor just recently emailed me and said that she's actually doing this right in Harrisburg, hosting a club, having girls come every Monday night to learn more about programming. And if you're interested in helping in a local, if you like live around here, professors, and you're interested in getting involved with that, or at least supporting her endeavors there, you can talk to me afterwards. But yeah, so there's definitely ways on the small scale that this can happen, and but it goes from all the way from access, education, hiring to management. It's every sphere has room to grow in this. So thank you very much.
We have time for a few questions. So.
Questions, yes.
You've made a good case for why diversity is good, even if it's not a case based on percentages of people. Just having a diverse workforce is good. But I was wondering if you had any clue as to what fraction, compare the fraction, say for example, of blacks who are in IT with the fraction of blacks in the United States. Is there a disparity of access when you account for the number of people from whom you can draw?
Yeah, so comparing the U.S. population with those in the field. Yeah, there's a pretty big discrepancy. Let me pull up one more graphic to illustrate that. So, okay, this one I think is pretty poignant for that. Just looking right here at some of the top ones listed, so there's mostly white males in the industry, and of non-white males, there are mostly Asian males in the industry. And so Latinos and blacks and people of mixed race or other ethnicities are significantly underrepresented, specifically because if you look at the US population, for blacks, there's 12% here, but here it's only 3%. So, whereas if you look at the Asian population, according to these demographics, there's 4% of the US population is Asian, but they are higher, like more represented. So there's an interesting thing that goes into that. I was reading about the stereotyping that goes on with the South Asian IT stereotype and how that plays into this. So we can talk about that later if you want. But yeah, there's definitely a discrepancy in those numbers. And from what I was reading, it has to do with that ground level access and educational opportunities. Certain people are not given access, and especially like depending on where they live, the educational programs are not up to par with the one. So the people who find themselves in educational systems that offer computer science like education, they're usually in the upper class. Like this affects every aspect of like socioeconomic like problems. But yeah, I'm not sure. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Have you run in kind of along the same lines, because I was going to ask kind of the same question with education. Have you found any statistics of people that have actually applied for the jobs and haven't gotten the jobs? Like, I don't know if that's something you could explore further, but like the education is one thing. The other thing is how many of them are trying to receive these jobs and not receiving them over white.
Yeah, that's something I haven't found numbers on, but I've heard like little stories here and there, and kind of this general sense that that's probably what's going on. So I would need to do more research to really find some quantifiable facts on that. Yeah.
Do you think the fact that women are underrepresented in this has to do with the history of the STEM fields excluding and more recently discouraging women from being in those types of fields?
Absolutely, yeah. And specifically the Girls Who Code organization, and then also Google is promoting Made with Code. It's a website they have. It's just sort of like a resource for all these different mentors and positions and ideas of how things can be made with code, and women can contribute to that. They're trying directly to combat that idea that STEM fields are only for men. And I think that with the rise of feminism and the ways in which women are standing up for their rights and trying to break out from the traditional domestic sort of, conceived notion of who they should be, that's really helping. But the educational system and the hiring system also needs to recognize that. And so there are a couple, let me see if I have it here. I'm not sure where I found it now. But I did see somewhere in one of these organizations that they had like a list of women who hold like high management positions in tech companies, and kind of pointing to them like, this is really good, you can achieve this, and sort of trying to take what may not be currently seen as normal, or women aren't capable of doing this, but saying yes, you can. And so yeah, that's something they're trying to do. Yeah. Anybody else? Everybody wants brownies. I get it. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Oh, man.